Momentum is currently negative for Bitcoin. Signals are currently bearish. If that changes, because Bitcoin's going sideways, if it bounces, or if it goes down to the 100 period and it bounces, then we'll maybe see a bounce off of the 100 period moving average. Right now, again, we're seeing momentum go sideways, and again, the balance of power is negative. If it turns back up, we get it back above the rainbow cloud, we start seeing the momentum line, the swing trend line turn back to bullish, rainbow cloud back above it, balance of power go positive, then we can get one more attempt or get a legitimate breakout, one more attempt to put it in a topping process or get a legitimate breakout above 69,000. Struggling at this area, again, we've had failed attempt after failed attempt. Again, here, 1, you failed. Here, 2, you failed. And here, 3, you failed. 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. Currently, we're on a sell signal, but if it flips back to a bullish signal, and you get back up above the rainbow cloud and you start getting back up above the moving averages that I'll show you later, above the swing trend line and the momentum line here, then Bitcoin will recover and we'll be watching what happens. But it is going sideways, and it's been going sideways here for about 7 weeks now. Signals are going back and forth from bullish to bearish to bullish to bearish. Currently they're bearish. Momentum is down. Signals are bearish at this point. Here we broke the green line right here, and again the bars are red and the momentum is red. The oscillator's going negative now. So again, do we get a bigger dump? And if we do, the 100 period moving average is the area, or the 20 week and the weekly time frame is the area to be watching. I'll talk more about that later in the video. But indicators, as we've gone sideways and tried to break the 60,000 area, indicators are turning bearish, or have turned bearish. If we're going to get a rebound, the bulls had better step up to the plate here, either here at horizontal support or down at the 100 period moving average. But we are seeing some real weakness here. This drop back into horizontal support, into the lower boundary of the trading range. Later in the video, I'll be talking about the 60,000 level of support, and if we lose that, then you have 100 period moving average in the daily time frame just under 57,000. But this right here is where we're trying to bounce off of. This lower boundary, the trading range, is right at rainbow cloud, and the rainbow cloud has acted ever since we got above it here. It's acted as support over and over and over again, and if we bounce off of it, we can go higher. If we break it, then you've got critical mass right below the critical mass line there, and if we take out the critical mass line, then Bitcoin is in trouble. It would mean it's either going down or sideways. But right now we're trying to bounce, or at least at the moment we're trying to bounce weekly time frame off of the rainbow cloud. And again, the rainbow cloud, when we broke it over here, it was resistance over and over in the downtrend. And we got above it here, it was support in the uptrend. So again, lose the rainbow cloud and drop below 60,000 and hold below that level, then Bitcoin's in trouble. If you get back a bounce off of it here, you can go and try to make a new high. Just some things to be aware of. The cycle for Bitcoin, we hit the line, and this is telling us something big's going to happen. Either we're going to get this big push higher, or we're going to get this and get this spectacular bull market run, or we're going to get a reversal at this 69,000 area. That's what this cycle is telling us, that something is about to happen. And we peaked just before that cycle was reached and got a lower high, and since then after the lower high have turned down. So again, we're watching to see, do we get a lower high, lower low, and we start moving in this direction, or do we break up and start moving in this direction? And again, this cycle takes us into October 2024. So again, it's a while here, but it takes us down here into October of 2024, so later in the year. Or do we get a push through this level and we pull back and it's off to the races and we start getting this bull market? Now, again, something big is going to happen, but we don't know which. So again, we're watching to see what happens here at this area of resistance, this 69,000 area, which we continue to struggle at. And I didn't draw that very straight. It's right there. We broke above it, and it's failed each time, at least so far, all 3 times. But right now we've gone through the cycle here, and so something, a big move, that's what it tells us, a big move is going to happen. Strategy hitting the 50 period after forming a diversion. So again, if it rebounds, so could Bitcoin, if it can bounce off of this area and again form a diversion or get a lower high or whatever, if we can get traction up, Bitcoin can as well. Thing with Coinbase, again, has a positive correlation really with both. And Coinbase, it has the price hitting the 50 period as well here. Again, we have now a potential channel here. So again, if we can get traction back up, we'll go to a higher high, you can form a higher high with Bitcoin and get a top similar to the tops in 2021 or get a legitimate breakout. But again, you've had these divergences give us a sell-off back to the 50 period on Coinbase, back to the 50 period on MicroStrategy. So again, do we rebound? And if we do, does Bitcoin try to bounce and get above the 50? Bitcoin lost it, back bouncing off of horizontal support. The 4-hour time frame, Bitcoin formed a little bullish divergence just under the 400 period. I told you in my previous updates to be watching to see if we try to get some traction around horizontal support and the 400 period moving average, or if we fail here, and if we do, we go down to the 100 period. We're trying to bounce here, forming this bullish divergence. We'll see if that just gives us a bounce, but or if we get something bigger. But again, pring parameter is in negative territory, and if pring parameter remains in negative territory and we remain below the 200 period in the 4-hour time frame with the 50 below it, that's bearish. Then the door is open to going down and taking out the 100 period in the daily. If we can bounce and get back above the 200, pring parameter goes back into positive territory, then that's bullish. You got to clear the 200, you got to clear the cloud here in the 4-hour time frame and bounce off of this 400 period with the divergence that is formed now here on the RSI, and we have it down here, the MACD as well, in the 4-hour time frame. We've seen some real choppiness around the horizontal support level here for Bitcoin. Let me just draw that straighter. The lows over here and here and here, and then here. We've been kind of bouncing around there. We dropped, and then we tried to take it out and drop below 60,000 briefly. Turn back above it. Currently, we're at 63,360. Again, you've got to take out the 60,000 area here and drop below it, hold below it if you're going to get a bigger sell-off. Directly below it in the daily time frame, we have a 100 period moving average here in this 57,000 area here, right around, just I think it's right underneath 57,000, right at the high 56,000 range, but it's just right at that 57,000 area, just underneath it. But anyways, we have our triangle, which we tried to break out here, and it broke out above the 78.6 Fibonacci of this decline, and then it failed. And then we had a breakdown, and now we're watching to see what happens with this breakdown. If we break support here, horizontal support, you're going to get a bigger dump, probably down to our 100 period moving average. Again, just below 57,000. If we can rebound, then we'll be watching the broken trend line right here, the apex of the triangle there, and the moving averages. The 10 is now crossing below the 50. The 20 is now starting to do the same. A bearish alignment of the moving averages. If the stock market, which is going back to hit the 20-week moving average, moving towards it anyways, and trying to fill a gap. If it can get a bounce, then so could Bitcoin, and then we'll be watching. If the S&P 500 tries to find support at the 20-week moving average and bounces, Bitcoin could bounce too. It did over here, and it got a lower high, bounced off a 20-week, got a lower high there in September of 2023 after the July peak, and then it dropped below the 20-week moving average, got a bigger sell-off. Over here at the top in 2022, it found support at the 20-week, it bounced, and then it came down and dropped below it, and it got a higher high and formed a divergence. Which is it going to be now? A lower high or a lower low? Should we bounce here above the 20-week as we did over here, or hitting the 20-week as we did at this level here and this level here? But if we get a higher high, we can go up and hit the channel. Bitcoin can do the same. If we rally and we can't make a new high, we get a lower high with the S&P, we may see it with the big price of Bitcoin as well, then we'll be watching for a break of the 20-week moving average. But this could, if we try to bounce here, down for 3 weeks here, if we try to bounce, again, you can get a recovery here and move slightly above this high like we did here, or slightly below the high like we did over here, or slightly above it right here. And if that happens for the S&P, Bitcoin can recover as well. Then we'll be watching. I think that the S&P has a pretty good shot historically of bouncing off the 20 period, sometimes in the downtrend, overthrowing it, and then resuming the trend. Here at the beginning of the rebound back up, we found support just beyond it. So again, the 20-week moving average, very, very important. It acts as support and it acts as resistance. So if we bounce here, then we'll see, do we set up a divergence or confirmation of a lower high? We could just plow right through these levels, but you got a pretty good shot that the S&P is going to try to bounce off the 20-week moving average. And if it does, Bitcoin can bounce off of support or going down to that 100 period. And the 20-week moving average is equal to the 100 period moving average in the daily time frame. They're the same. Very, very close to it. Version is the same. The S&P, which is trying to fill this gap right now, if it goes a little bit lower, you've got a parallel trend line hitting the 100 period moving average or just above it. This is just slightly below the 20-week right here. But the 100-day does equal the 20-week. But if we hit this level or try to bounce filling the gap, then Bitcoin could also bounce. And then we'll watch, does the S&P get a lower high and rebound back up and fill the gap around 5,200? There's a gap there, and then it tanks and breaks this trend line, or does it go make a higher high, like on that weekly chart I showed you, go above these levels and move towards 5,300 or so, below 5,300 area, and then tank? Does, again, it'll form a topping process, and Bitcoin could form a larger topping process, start losing the 20-week on the S&P and 100-day on the Bitcoin price, the 20-week on Bitcoin in the weekly time frame, then Bitcoin will get a bigger dump. And I'm just trying to show you what's going on with the S&P, because if the S&P can find support, I've drawn a parallel boundary to the upper boundary of the rising wedge, and here it is. And if we hit it right here, we can rally going into the Fed meeting, okay, and get the lower high or get the higher high over the next couple of weeks, and then potentially complete a topping process. Again, it is possible that the stock market has peaked, and the peak was right there. Nasdaq peaked right here the day after the Fed meeting, but again, this because again the market, the stock market and Bitcoin, they have a positive correlation. If Bitcoin continues to drop and loses this level of support right here, it loses this level of support, again, it could attempt to bounce off the 100 period moving average. It did last time. I'm a big believer in the 100 period moving average. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average in the daily time frame. It follows the 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame. Now again, the 20-week moving average is just a little bit under that 100-day moving average in the daily time frame, but this is the 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame, and Bitcoin follows the 20-week moving average, the 100 period moving average in the daily time frame. Bitcoin loses those levels, then it's in trouble. Right now, we're trying to get above the 69,000 area, and we have struggled to do so. Attempting a rebound right now. We'll see how we close by the end of the week. The market can recover. Maybe Bitcoin attempts a recovery as well. Even if it breaks horizontal support at 60,000, you have the 20-week here in the 54,000 range, and then you have 100-day moving average in the high 56,000 range. And again, they're very close. It's not perfect. Those are the two important support levels and resistance levels on Bitcoin in the daily and the weekly time frame. Now, if we end up losing the 20-week, again, we'll see this go negative. When you're below the 20-week, it's negative. When you're above the 20-week, it's positive. And going sideways, it's going back and forth, like what we had in here. Now, just as the S&P 500 does not have a divergence yet on the RSI, and it may just get a bounce at some point and get a lower high. Bitcoin, the same thing. It does not have a divergence. It doesn't have to form a divergence, but it can. At the peak over here, we didn't get a divergence in that recent price action, but we did with the previous peak, and it formed a larger divergence, very similar down here, a very large divergence down here. Smaller negative divergence at the July peak there, So again, a smaller divergence here with the first Bitcoin peak back in early 2021. So do we get a divergence or confirmation of a lower high? Should we rebound? And we'll be watching to see if that is the case. Does Bitcoin go up briefly and then fail, or does it get a legitimate breakout and never look back and drop below 69,000 again and just keep going? The problem is that you have the potential for a divergence or a confirmation of a lower high with the next rebound. Should that happen now, or should we go down further? It's a 20-week or towards the 100-day moving average in the daily time frame before trying to get any kind of meaningful bounce back up. Right now we're trying to bounce off horizontal support. I'm going to be watching this along with the weekly chart for the S&P 500 to see. They both reached extremes, began to turn down. If we get some kind of rebound in the market, and with Bitcoin, you could see a divergence form, or you could see a confirmation of a lower high form. So again, it's still possible that we get a topping process that looks something similar if we are in a topping process rather than a legitimate breakout that looks something like that. Again, the line in the sand is 69,000. Either you're going to break above it, never look back, and you've got a breakout in a new bull market. You're going to get rejection here, and you're going to go back and you're going to test this trend line, and you're going to go back, and if that trend line breaks, go back and test the lows at 15,000. Potentially, the bear market never ended, and you're getting this massive expanded flat where you go just above this high, but then you come back and take out this low. That's an expanded flat with the Elliott wave counts. The bullish count would be that we break up here and we keep going and never look back. But again, a lot of speculation that the halving is going to take us off to the races here. Bitcoin doesn't follow so much the halving, but it does follow the economic data. Now having rate cuts postponed until 2025, at least at the moment, with Fed Fund futures, 7 cuts priced into Bitcoin and the S&P 500, and now those are all gone. Poof, gone. So does the S&P and Bitcoin begin to readjust with that? I think we're going to move closer towards recession, and as we do, the stock market will begin to price in a recession, and Bitcoin will likely. So again, there's problems and hurdles. But if we do clear 69,000 and stay above it, then you got a breakout as long as we don't drop back below 69,000. So far, we've made 3 attempts. All 3 have failed, at least so far. So what happens here? Do we get a legitimate breakout, or do we get a fake out? Do we get a new bull market, or do we get a reversal at this area? Our daily chart, currently Bitcoin at the moment is up 3.5%. It's up 2,183. Again, bouncing out the 60,000 level, currently at 63,000. The previous day, it was down by 4%. When we broke, again, we had that 4.61% drop. We had dropped 8%, but rebounded back up, and then we had a rebound here of 2.65%. Here, we dropped back down 3.5%, candle of indecision, and then dropped another 4%. So we came back and took out that 8% level. We were down 12% at the week's lows, attempting to recover here at this horizontal support level. So currently we're up about 3.5%. If we drop further, the 100 period is the level to be watching, and the 20-week is just below it. And really, 2 moving averages really define the momentum and the trend. And Bitcoin, it's above the 100 period moving average, usually trending higher or going sideways. Below the 100 period, that's this pink line right here, then usually it's going down or sideways. The 20 period moving average in the daily time frame really defines momentum in the daily time frame. Lost that 20 period moving average, so momentum is down, and we've come back and we're testing horizontal support. Whoops, not very straight there. We're testing horizontal support here at the 60,000 level. If we lose it, then you have your 100 period moving average. So again, tells you when you're going up, tells you when you're going sideways. Again, you're dropping below it, back above it, back below it, and tells you when you're going down, consistently down here. We had tried to break above it and it failed, but consistently getting rejection at it, consistently getting support at it when you're going higher. So last time we hit it, I told you that we had a short-term bottom in at that 38,000 area, and that we were going to bounce and either try to break to a new high or get a lower high, one or the other. But signals turned back to bullish, and we went to a new high, and then we hit the peak, and then we've been chopping around, so they've been going back and forth from bullish to bearish. But as what I'm watching here is to see if we bounce off 60,000 or if we move down to that 100 period moving average. You take out that 100 period moving average, Bitcoin's in serious trouble. If you go down to it and bounce, like over here, we came down to it and we bounced, okay? And then we broke it, we had trouble. Here we got above it, we bounced, and we moved on to a new high. So again, here we had a break above it, it failed. But again, I'm a big believer in the 100 period moving average. So if 60,000 fails, you've got this 57,000 area at the 100 period. We'll be watching to see what happens there. Last time we tagged it, we bounced. If we bounce off horizontal support, then we'll be watching. Okay, do we go stop making new highs, or do we go up and try to make a new high? And if we do, is it a fake out and then a reversal, or is it a real breakout? You got to clear this level, hold above 69,000, stay above it, never look back, and we have not been able to do that. We've broken above it 3 times. Each time it has failed. Is it 1, 2, 3 strikes and you're out? The old ball game? Or do we go make a 4th attempt to do it? If we do, is it the real deal? Don Steele, or a fake, phony, baloney, plastic banana, good time rock and roll fake breakout? Bitcoin has some serious trouble here trying to clear the 69,000 area. We got above it. We hit 73,000, just under 73,800 so far. That is a high. Do we get a lower high and a lower low and come back and start breaking the 100 period moving average right here and have something like this happen and break this level and happen? That would be bearish. Or do we try to bounce here, or can we get some traction here off horizontal support at 60,000? So just some levels and things I'm watching. But the 100 period, you lose it, it's going to be bearish. You hold above it, that's bullish. But in order for things to remain bullish, you got to clear 69,000. And so far, we haven't been able to do it. We've had breakouts above it, but they have all failed. All 3 attempts have now failed. Got to get back above the 20 if momentum is going to shift. Right now, it's turning down. The 20-day moving average is turning down. So again, we'll be watching this. If we put the cloud, the trending cloud with Bitcoin, again, you'll notice that they tend to act as support, the cloud and 100 period. Down here, the lower end of the cloud is right where the 100 period is, just like back over here. And again, that's why I told you we were going to bounce right there, because Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. If we do go lower, you want to be watching this high 56,000 area or so, where the 100 period moving average is at. Now, again, we don't have to go down to it. We may just try to bounce off horizontal support, but if we do lose this area, then that is the key support level we want to be watching. Again, with Bitcoin's breakout above 69,000, we're watching to see, does it get a legitimate breakout, keep going, and we have a new bull market? The scenario is that we peaked, sit, and we're going to get a reversal. Had 3 attempts to move above 69,000, it's over, and we are getting a lower high and eventually a lower low, and Bitcoin will reverse. The scenario is that we attempt to go back up and make a higher high, but then that fails, and we come back down, and we end up taking out that 100 period moving average. You get a similar situation like what we had back up at the 2 peaks that formed in 2021. So again, just some things I'm watching here. But again, CD's gone negative, so the door is open for a bigger drop if it remains there. If it can firm up like it did over here when we hit the 100 period, it firmed up. If you can get that happening, then you can get a rebound, and so can the stock market. I think that stock market, if it fills the gap or if it goes down to the 20-week moving average, will likely get a bounce. Usually that's what happens. If it does, Bitcoin, again, can see a bounce, but again, we may drop to this 100 period before all is said and done, if Bitcoin breaks horizontal support. In addition to the cloud and the 100 period moving average in the daily time frame, we also have the rising trend from this low right here to this low right here. If we exclude the shadow, it's just under the 100 period moving average. with the log scaling. If we go back up and we try to move back up to a higher high, if this is a consolidation, we try to break to a higher high or go down and try to break back up and buy some time going into the Fed meeting, again, you could still form a larger divergence here. That's what happened over here. We formed a divergence with this peak right here, formed a divergence there, and then it evolved into a larger divergence, and we firmed back up, and around that 50 level got bounced off of it. Here we're just below it. If we get back above the 50 level on the RSI, you could still form a divergence and again get a similar top to the 2021 tops. Now I'm watching to see what the monthly bar looks like. Again, we had these wide range bars, okay, and we're over halfway through the month. If we rebound on Bitcoin over the next 2 weeks, and we rebound going into the Fed meeting, and we rebound in the stock market, could end up with a doji or a hanging man candlestick or something like that, or a spinning top maybe, but a doji, the doji cross in the higher end, if we go back up towards the highs or even try to make a new high, you might go up doji hangman should we attempt to make a new high, and that is still very possible if we can bounce off the support levels I'm talking about. Again, over here we had these wide range bars, and we ended up getting a similar candlestick in the form of a spinning top, and we went higher. Here we got this wide range bar, we ended up going higher, we got a topping tail, but again, a potential reversal bar in each of those cases followed with those topping tails. So again, I'll be watching. Do we try to get a topping tail here going higher, and before the month ends getting some kind of topping tail, we get a rebound back up? And it's still very, very possible. Similar kind of a top that we had to the 2021 peaks that formed. We don't have to form a top like that, but it is possible that we form a top very similar to this. We could just validate a lower high, but these two peaks, you got a peak, you got some volatility, you hung around here for a while, and then you went and got one final high, and then you tanked. Here you peaked, you turned down, you hung around here for a few weeks, went to a higher high 3 weeks later. Here it was 5 weeks later, and then you tanked. Here we had a peak, we sold off, we tried to rally, and now we've sold off again, and we're just hovering around this area. Again, if we break down, you get a lower high, lower low, you can't recover, then that's it. If you push on higher, you get a fake breakout if you turn and fail, or you get a legitimate breakout. One of those scenarios has got to happen here. And as I told you previously, at other times when we broke into a new high, here you just went on and it was off to the races. Here we're struggling. So again, a very problematic event here, struggling at this overhead resistance for Bitcoin, given that all the other times we've done it, except for over here, where we did it and it failed, all the other times it was successful, where you broke above overhead resistance and you just kept going. Looking back, we haven't been able to do that. We've had 3 attempts. Maybe we'll get a 4th. But again, do we get a top with the lower high or low and reverse and start breaking down, or do we get one more push higher and it's a fake out and it looks something like this, or do we get a legitimate breakout like the previous breakouts that have happened in the past with Bitcoin when it moves above the previous peak? Some things to be paying attention to, especially with the close of the month here. If we rebound, what does that monthly bar look like? Weekly bars look like right here by the end of the month.